Welcome to the EMDC podcast, where you get to know the people, places, and possibilities behind the global EMDC community. We're glad you are watching or listening. I'm your host, Tim Cowley of Expat Media Pro and Global Creatives Collective. My co-host is the founder of EMDC, Steve Ballman. EMDC is a global community of Jesus followers who have been generally meeting together at a conference venue each year. In 2020, we rolled out an online platform for ongoing training and connecting, and with that, a big growth in serving and connecting more people into our network. Through this podcast, we aim to create community and provide encouragement by talking with communication experts who use their particular expertise to more effectively share the gospel in mainly non-Christian regions.
What I love about EMDC is the food at the conferences, when we can actually meet.
I think the really important thing about EMDC is the community that is created and the connections. Those connections lead to more people knowing about Jesus because more projects happen.
Not everybody really gets what I do, but when you show up at the EMDC, you're surrounded by a loving community of other really crazy people that think making media for missions is not a nutty occupation, but dare I say it, essential.
You know, sometimes we just get so caught up in our own little world.
On the field, you can get a lot of tunnel vision.
To just see what God is doing all over the world through so many people.
But seeing the big picture is super encouraging.
People are coming who are looking for media to use in their ministries, and then other people are coming who have the ability to make media or are offering films and resources that they can make available.
Even though the conference is mainly in English, it's not an English-only conference. It's really a cross-cultural thing because you have people from different backgrounds.
And it's amazing, the collection of stories, and I have made hundreds of friends.
It's great to be with friends and family in the Lord from all over the world.
Whatever interactions you have is multiplied by 1,000.
It's a really powerful time of connecting.
You go there with like-minded people. Still, you find people you can learn from and you can share your experience with.
I can just see the taste of heaven.
For our 5th and 6th EMDC podcast episodes, recorded on November 17th, 2020, audio and radio experts Chris Singh with WEC in the UK and Pierre-Yves Mutrux with Galcom International, based in Canada, will share with us about the impact that audio ministries in various forms are still having today.
In past talks, we have covered an introduction to EMDC, looking at what EMDC is and who it's for, as well as where we've come from and where we're headed. After that, we spoke with some talented filmmakers who are a big part of the EMDC world. Steve, any chance you'll forget to speak English a little bit and maybe go off into French today?
Well, if with Pierre-Yves here, we could easily do that. That would be fun. So tell us when you're ready for that.
You feel free, man. Like, this is going to be the international, we're trying to show people this is not just for North Americans speaking English. This is for the international audience. So I just won't be able to contribute much. And I don't know about Chris. Do you speak French, Chris?
Well, not in French, but I'll be able to contribute in Hindi, Punjabi, Urdu, whichever.
Don't get him started. He speaks many languages.
Yes, that would be a monologue, but you're most welcome if you want to speak to some others who understand that, of which we do have many who will be watching and listening. Our podcast is going to be on YouTube for people so they can watch it if they prefer, because I like that visual element so that we get to know each other, what each other looks like, and then when we get together in person, or if we get onto the EMDC, learning platform, we start to see people in our sessions and recognize them from different things that we're doing. Steve, how do you listen to podcasts? I'm just curious.
Me, high-tech me. Everybody knows that I'm the lowest tech guy, but I actually had my kids help me put Spotify on my phone, and I do listen through Spotify to a couple of theologians and pastors and messages that way.
Yeah. What about you guys, Chris or Pierre-Yves? Any favorite podcasts?
Well, I listen from time to time on Google Blogs, but very random. I don't have a sort of pet subject or pet speakers, but I just go wherever.
I have about 30 minutes commute every day. So I'm subscribed to news in podcast, so I can listen to the latest news bulletin in French and in English. So I cover Switzerland and Canada. We'll get to that later. The reason why. And I'm filling the rest of the time with a comedy show that I follow also on podcast. And the funny thing is, they ask listeners contributions, and they love getting contributions from abroad because that's I didn't say it's a Swiss podcast. And so last month I sent them a contribution, and they acknowledged. They said my name on the national radio channel, so it was great fun. I hope it will turn into good fundraising.
Yes, you're going to be famous now. That's great.
Before you go on, I want to make sure that everybody, you see how we're talking about podcasts right now. It's funny because Chris will identify with what I'm talking about, Pierre-Yves also. Just when the time when everybody thought everything was going to go to video and internet and radio and audio was going to just be, go by the wayside, which we all know it doesn't anyway. Even just radio, even just old-fashioned hold a radio is still not dead by any means. But just when we thought audio and radio was phasing out, in came podcasts, thus raising the whole importance of audio recording and getting it right and everything. So Chris is still the man to know. Pierre-Yves, these guys, these audio guys are still the people to know in that regard, even in a new way now with the whole podcasting, just when you thought it was phasing out. Go ahead, Tim. I just wanted to make sure that, to remind people that even if you think the thing that you're good at, your technology, your specialty is on its way out, who knows what's happening these days? It might just make its way back in.
Yeah, that's right. And, Steve, I was thinking you could introduce our guest today because you have some background and history with these guys. So would you do the honors for me?
Sure. Yeah, sure. Chris Singh with Radio Worldwide in WEC in the UK is one of the first people that came to EMDC and then was willing to lead a training track. And he's never missed an EMDC, actually. So there's only about 4 of us left, who's never missed. Yeah, that's right. And now we'll retain that title for a while since we're not having EMDC right now. But Chris, the first year we didn't have any training tracks, and the next year we said, Chris, would you do an audio training track? And as it turns out, Pierre-Yves co-led that with him on the, much more on the, the technical side and the loudness side and all that knob turning side. So these two guys actually were in on the first training track on audio that we had in EMDC the second year, 2012, when we first started a training track, and Chris has led that audio training track ever since. So Chris Singh is in the UK with WEC, and Pierre-Yves is with Galcom, and he is in Canada, but Swiss French, and maybe they'll say more. But that's enough for now.
Wonderful. Yeah, let's go a little bit deeper. Chris, I'm going to go with you because we often look to GMT when we're trying to plan our global meetings these days. So tell me in a few minutes kind of about your ministry and your life there.
Well, I came to the GMT country in 1989, so it's my 31st year in this country. But before that, we worked, my wife and I worked in Seychelles with a grand radio station called FIBA Radio, and I was doing live broadcasts from there from 84 to 89. And prior to that, I was in India. I was born and brought up in India and educated in India, and got to the national radio in India, All India Radio. That's where my training came from, and then I came into the Christian media. But since we came to the UK in 1989, the training took over. Because I was a broadcaster and a journalist and newscaster and so on. But from 1989, I have been into training. And because many people used to come to the UK for training, and we used to run courses here, but in mid-90s, getting a visa for overseas people, especially from the third world countries, became very difficult. So I started traveling. I started traveling to them. So I have been to over 100 countries now, conducting this training in audio, radio, media, and lately in social media. So that's what I am, and then I connected with EMDC, and there is another world in EMDC there. people from all over the world. I mean, the countries I hadn't even heard the names of are there. And I say, are you from where? What? Is that a country? And they say, yes, I'm serving the Lord there. And it was amazing. So it's just really wonderful. So that's what I am.
Great. Yeah, it certainly is a perk of what we do for ministry to be able to travel. I feel like it's an often unspoken of perk because we feel so blessed to be able to travel that we sometimes don't want to talk too much about it because people might get jealous and then they all might want to do ministry globally like we do. And we can't have everyone doing that, right? I mean,
no.
Yeah, well, let me just say that Chris hasn't seen all those countries as a tourist. He goes, they put him up and he teaches people, then he goes home. I mean, you know, maybe he gets sick from the food or something and then goes home. You know, this is not the 5-star tour that he goes on here. So let's make it clear that's 100 countries on the hard route, not on the tourist route. So
yeah, thank you, Steve. You know me better.
Hopefully you get a day of rest where you can at least relax and see some nice things wherever you are.
I always not travel on the day I'm teaching. I travel sort of a night before and then leave a day after, so that at least I've got some breathing space in that country before I'm rushing off from the training room to the airport.
Yeah, it has not always been the same case for me. I also realized I'm going into countries to work, and so I really had to accept that sometimes you don't see anything but a studio and an office. You know, I was 24 hours doing nothing in Cairo. I even didn't see the pyramids because there was no one there to bring me, and so I didn't know where I was in the middle of the city. I didn't have a smartphone at that time. It was very frustrating, and then I decided, okay, that's work, and never mind.
Yeah, good word. I guess take it when we can get it, but sometimes it's just a conference, it's just meetings, and you're working solid. You know, sometimes they're 12-hour, 18-hour days. It's hard work, but yes, we're blessed to be able to have health and travel.
That's what I liked about EMDC, because Steve was very good in planning. So there was a training part of it, 4 days, and then there was a day off, and then 4 days of conference. So in the day off, people who were there for training and for the conference take the day out, and there were tours arranged, and people used to go to different places and temple when we were in Thailand and Chiang Mai.
Yeah. You know, we learned that the hard way, though, Chris. Because if you remember, the very first time we added the training, we finished the training on the same day that everyone was supposed to be arriving for the next session, and it was the very first year. You probably have already suppressed that memory, you know. So
that's right.
It was a very difficult thing. So we said, oh no, this is not working. We have to have that day, which makes the overall time a little longer for people, but boy, it sure makes a big difference. Yeah.
Oh, it does make a difference. Yeah, you are able to concentrate more on the conference and so on, take really part. Because after the training, you are so drained out that you are not ready to take on the next thing without taking a break in between. So thank you, Steve.
Right.
You, as I said, you are a good planner.
That's right. Yeah, I came on a little bit later. I haven't been to all of the sessions, all of the times, and I love the days out where I can bike up to the top of the mountain, rent a bike there in Chiang Mai, or go ride on an elephant, or whatever it might be. There's a lot of things to enjoy.
EMDC. That sound means our conversation will come to a pause as we check in with our episode sponsor. Learn more about our sponsor, Galcom International, by visiting galcom.org.
There are 3 billion unreached people around the world, but with only 0.1% of Christians serving as missionaries, how can so few workers reach those who urgently need to hear the gospel? The answer? Radio. Galcom exists to help pastors and missionaries multiply their impact with audio tools like the Omni Station, all-in-one broadcasting system, the Galcom Streamer internet radio system, and the new Compass, solar-powered radio and audio Bible. Galcom has sent over 1 million radios around the world. We'd like to partner with you. Visit galcom.org.
Okay, Pierre-Yves, tell us about yourself. I see you are international in focus as well.
Yes. Not really planned. It just happened to us, or to me. Yeah, I'll try to get to the why. I was born and raised in the French part of Switzerland, as Steve already mentioned, and never thought I would speak any foreign language. You may know that in Switzerland we have several official languages, but learning my first foreign language was such a nightmare. In my case, well, that was German. And during my school time, I had absolutely zero interest. And then they added English. Can you imagine learning languages? No. And then I went to a technical university, and there the languages were just the lowest priority. It was so intense to learn so many different important things, physics and electronics and regulation and all that. So languages were just almost non-existent until I realized if I want to do something a little bit beyond the edge of my plate, as we say in German, then I may need some language. And then when the interest was here, I started learning foreign languages, and it actually served me in what I'm doing for the Lord right now. So the Lord has provided according to the need. So, but anyway, after I finished my study, I graduated as an engineer in electronics, and I started doing some audio video, mainly video, mainly audio at that time. That was kind of 30 years ago, and trying to serve a choir. We had up to 80 singers, and all they had was an acoustic guitar and sometimes a piano if there was one in the gym. And then I came in. They said, "Oh, Pierre, can you come that night? We have a speaker and we'll have one microphone. Can you set it up?" I said, "Yeah, I know nothing about microphones, but I can set it up." I was in my early 20s, and this is how it started. You can't
Oh
believe it,
no, that's
Steve. I
unbelievable.
see
That's a
that in
great
your body
story.
language.
Don't ever say yes when someone asks you to set up a mic
Yes.
unless you want to have a future in audio visual. Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, great story.
But you may not know that this comes from the Lord, and I didn't know it. And I started doing it because I wanted to serve, and I think that was the right attitude. I also liked pressing buttons. I need to admit, but. And then I started growing into that. I introduced all the different instruments, because I was given a 12-track mixer, and I said, why do I not put a microphone on the acoustic guitar and then on the electric piano and on and on and on? And this is how it grew. And until the moment it was so frustrating because I had to come like 2 or 3 hours before the choir and then stay another 1 or 2 hours after to clean up, and I didn't have time to go and greet people because I was working the whole time. I said, why am I doing that? But that was until the point where I realized this was a calling. That was what the Lord wanted me to do. Of course, there was always this aspect of liking to press button, but pressing buttons or pushing faders became so frustrating. And the Lord spoke to me and said, "No, you're doing that for me." And that from that moment on, I realized it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if I don't see the pyramids in Egypt because I'm there for working. I mean, I'm also not crazy, and I do enjoy looking at different things in the countries I go, but this is not the priority, and I think the focus is important. Anyways, just to finish, I was a bit longer than I thought. um, I grew up into doing audio, and then I thought about mission, so I went for a short-term mission in Africa, and when I came back, I said, no way, mission is not for me. I'm not a preacher. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a Bible translator. There's no space for me. But when I came back from a short-term mission in Africa, I realized, no, that's wrong. God has given me some gifts. He wants to use me in my capacity. In my case, it was technical stuff, it was audio, whatever. It doesn't matter. God wants to use me. God wants to use you in a capacity He gave you. And this is what I did. And so I started thinking, oh, what could I do? And I love helicopters. I'm fascinated, and I thought, oh, maybe I can become a helicopter pilot. So I started looking into it until the day a friend of mine said, "But you do have experience in audio." I said, "Yeah, but," he said, "Do you know transworld radio?" I said, "No." So I went on their website the same evening, and they were looking for an engineer to go work in Vienna, Austria. And I told my wife, look, I don't know why, but I think I should apply. And one year later, we were in mission, engaged with Transworld Radio in Austria, and where we stayed 11 years. And then 3 years ago now, we switched to working with Galcom in Ontario, Canada. And that's where we are.
This is a great story. And we recently did the podcast. The first podcast was on the video creation. And every one of the people in the podcast said, because of our inability to move around with the virus, we're now doing the post-production, which they didn't like, and it's kind of goes with your story of you don't always do what you think you're going to do, but you have to stick with it and realize that the Lord wants you to do this task and to keep going at it and to make it and do it well. And the fact that you do what you do well and Chris does what he does well, that frees the rest of us up to not have to know that skill. You know what I mean? And I think that's an important thing you just said to us.
Yeah, and the goal of our podcast is to kind of bring all of you together as experts along with people that are in need of the kind of skills and training that you provide. So we're creating community, we're providing encouragement by talking with experts who are engaged in all kinds of things, and you guys are involved in audio production and in training. So it's just exciting to have you and to hear your stories. I love hearing how people got involved in ministries. So, the focus too on our podcast isn't just on, if I live in Portland, Oregon, if we have a guy doing media ministry in his church in Portland, that's not as much our focus as somebody who is in, maybe in Pakistan doing ministry in a non-Christian place where he needs the encouragement to get to know and get trained in these kinds of things, or in somebody who's gone to another country and they're an expat but living in, Africa somewhere, working, doing media, or even just trying to use media a little bit. They're not professionals by any means. So it's exciting to kind of bring us all together.
Yeah, and with that said, Tim, would this be a good chance for Chris to tell us what he does and who he trains and the kind of classes? I mean, I followed him for years. I didn't literally hold the suitcases and follow him, but I followed his travels around, and but he was, he would be in the Congo, and then he would be in Rwanda a week later or whatever, and it's just amazing. Now, of course, with the travel, so maybe Chris, tell us what's happening with like the changes these days. How are people getting trained? Are they still moving forward in their audio training and in that kind of thing?
Well, because we are talking online and we are on this blog, some training has moved on to online. I have done courses where in June I was teaching in a Bible school where I normally go and teach Hinduism, because audio is not the only thing I teach, because of my background and so on, and coming from India. There are some Bible colleges who asked me to come and do the major religions, and Hinduism I have been teaching in Cornerstone in the Netherlands for a number of years. And this year I was scheduled to go in June and teach there, but because of COVID and virus, all these were cancelled, and most of the classes were happening online. So the college contacted me and says, would you mind doing an online class? So I had to really relearn the whole thing of teaching a 1 week of lessons online. But thank God that there are now facilities on platforms where you can share videos, you can have discussion, you can divide people into groups, you can break out rooms, and you can have people share on a whiteboard. So all these things I wasn't aware of. But these are sort of new discovery which I have just come across, and I said, wow, this is much better. And when you are online, you are much more concise, because if you are face to face, you waste a lot of time in just socializing and chatting about this and that. But when you are online, you are so much focused. And I think that's what I learned in my first online teaching sessions for this Bible college called Cornerstone in the Netherlands. And then the word got round that, hey, Chris can actually teach online. And then people started asking me, would you do one? But the thing was, in most of my teachings are in Africa. The thing was that there is not bandwidth and people do not have the facility to go online and learn on laptops and all that. Most people are using mobile phones for their internet access and so on. And it would be difficult to do Zoom because they wouldn't be able to see each other. There are only 4 people on a screen, and wouldn't be able to share a lot of PowerPoint because it will be so small. And also the internet speed is not so good. But so it happened that Chuck Pollack, who is also one of the guys who is from Sharing International Ministries, has been to EMDC. He said, look, we have a media school in Nigeria, and we have been planning. So Chuck and I were to go to Nigeria this year and to South Africa and to South Sudan to conduct training courses. He said, look, we have got funds available. Instead of investing it on travel and all those things, we'll give these funds to the people in Nigeria and South Sudan to use it as pay for the best internet they could buy, and then hire a large screen television. And because there is no restriction on travel and gathering there, they could just be in a room, and we'll have a microphone and a large screen television and loudspeakers, and we will do interactive training there. So that's what we did in October, and it was really massive. And not only South Sudan and Nigeria, but we opened it through Radio Africa Network, RAN. We said, well, any African countries can join, and because it's relevant to Africa, and we were focusing Africa, and we were tailor-making these for the African FM radio stations. So we said, look, if you advertise this, so in the end we had a dozen countries joining in, and about 300 participants, which would be impossible to do a face-to-face training for that. So that's what we did. And then there are some other people lining up, and they're saying, hey, can you do this for us? So that's how the ministry has actually taken turn. And I'm not sort of jobless or twiddling my thumbs in sitting in the UK and not traveling and not packing my suitcase every other week. But it's great that the online platform has opened, and most of we are in a lockdown situation in the UK, and most of the schools are happening online, and the universities are happening online. I still meet some students from time to time from universities in the UK, and they are saying we are just having online sessions. So online has become a new standard of training, and I'm glad that the Lord has been teaching me, and as I said, that I'm learning online platforms more and more, and God is using that. So it's amazing.
And again, the need for audio and training and radio program training is not diminished now, because we're all have a device in our pocket that we can listen to a podcast or whatever in our car, in our pocket. So
yeah, the one thing you said before, audio is still king. I always say audio is king. If you're working with a video, the pictures are great, that's good. But if you lose the audio, people lose. Because one thing which I'm listening again and again is the thing, you are muted. You are muted. Unmute yourself. Because you can see the people. I'll be able to see you. But if they're not able to hear me, what's the point of showing my pretty face and not really make any sense, because there is no sort of subtitles or any text or anything. It's just the audio which is talking to people.
That's great. We had a video session on EMDC Online, and here's a video producer, and he says this line. He says, your video is only as good as your audio.
That's right. Yeah.
So it's you're still alive and well. And by the way, Cornerstone is a Bible school in Netherlands, and they're still functioning too. They do come to EMDC. In fact, Wolfgang comes. In fact, we have a very big EMDC person, Andrew. He and his wife are getting trained at Cornerstone to go serve overseas. So anyway, back to you, Tim. I'm
right. Yes, I know Andrew. Yeah, that's excellent. Yeah, I know Wolfgang came, and because it was in the Netherlands, and And I said to Wolfgang, look, we are just around the corner, you come. And he came. I used to go and teach Media Week, but when Wolfgang came on EMDC, he said, Chris, you don't need to come anymore, I can do it. And I was saying, praise the Lord for this. Because I'm just not teaching the student, I'm actually training the trainers who can go on.
And this is where we're going to take a pause in our conversation with Chris and Pierre-Yves, having been duly reminded that audio isn't going away even as technology advances. Just look at the rise of apps like Clubhouse and other drop-in audio platforms as one of many examples of how audio continues to be used in fresh ways. Thanks for tuning in to the EMDC podcast. Feel free to share it in public forums with those you think will find interest in our topics. If you have any comments, do reach out by emailing podcast@emdc.live. Head over to emdc.info to learn about our upcoming online trainings, read our blog, find resources, or learn about our physical conferences. Original theme music is created by our very own Schwartz Gray Band.